Hello and welcome to my podcast. I'm Alden Carrow, author of Cornwall In Verse, To Tor In Poetry. This show is about slowing down, listening closely and discovering the poetry that lives in both the extraordinary and the everyday. Each episode I begin with a guest poem, something from the wider world of poetry that has inspired me or continues to resonate. Then I'll invite you, the listeners, to suggest future guest poems, and after that I'll share one of my own pieces too. Today, as we settle into the rhythm of this episode, I want to explore the concept of the timelessness of place. There are certain locations, coordinates on a map, that seem to exist outside of the relentless march of the clock. These are places where history does not feel like a list of dates in a textbook, but rather like a vapour that rises from the soil itself. We often rush through our lives, moving from point A to point B, treating the landscape merely as a backdrop or a blurred scenery through a train window. But what happens when we stop? What happens when the engine cuts out and the silence rushes in? To explore this, I've chosen a classic piece by Edward Thomas titled Adlestrop. Written in the early 20th century, just before the world changed forever with the onset of the First World War, this poem captures a singular, unplanned moment of stillness in the English countryside. It is a poem that proves that the most profound experiences of place often happen when we aren't looking for them, when we are simply waiting, and in that waiting, the world reveals its quiet, eternal heartbeat. Edward Thomas was a poet who understood the profound gravity of the English landscape. He didn't just see the trees and the birds, he felt them as extensions of a deeper, unspoken consciousness. Adlestrop is perhaps his most famous work, and rightly so. It recounts a train journey on a hot June day in 1914. The express train, usually a symbol of speed and modernity, stops unexpectedly at a small empty station. There is no drama, no great event, no grand announcement. There is only the steam hissing, the heat of the sun, and the name of the station is in itself. In choosing this poem for our theme of the timelessness of place, I want you to pay attention to how Thomas expands a single second into an eternity. He shows us that a place is not just defined by the people in it, for Adlestrop was empty, but by the accumulation of life that surrounds it, the flora, the fauna, and the very air itself. Let us transport ourselves back to that summer afternoon. Adlestrop by Edward Thomas. Yes, I remember Adlestrop, the name because one afternoon of heat the express train drew up there unwantedly. It was late June. The steam hissed, someone cleared his throat. No one left, and no one came. On the bare platform, what I saw was Adlestrop, only the name. And willows, willow herb and grass, and meadowsweet and haycocks dry, no whit less still and lonely fair than the high cloudlets in the sky. And for that minute a blackbird sang, close by and round him mistier, farther and farther all the birds of Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire. When we listen to Adlestrop, we are listening to a ghost story of the most benevolent kind. The poem begins with a simple affirmation of memory. Yes, I remember Adlestrop. It's conversational, intimate, as if Thomas is sitting right here with us, nodding his head in recollection. The stopping of the train is described as unwontedly, a beautiful word that signals a break in the routine, a rupture in the expected schedule of modern life. It is in this rupture that the poetry and the place emerges. The sensory details are incredibly sharp, yet incredibly quiet. The steam hissed, someone cleared his throat, These sounds emphasize the silence rather than breaking it. They are the small human noises that make the vast emptiness of the landscape feel even larger. Thomas notes that no one left and no one came. The platform is bare. Usually a train station is a place of transit, of greetings and farewells, of human movement. But here, stripped of its function, the station becomes a temple to the summer heat. The poem pivots on the observation of nature reclaiming the attention of the traveller. He lists the flora: willows, willow herb, grass, meadowsweet, haycocks dry. These are not exotic plants, they are staples of the English countryside. But by naming them, he gives them dignity. He grounds us in the specific texture of that June day. The scent of the dry hay and the meadowsweet almost drifts off the page. It is a moment of pure perception, where the observer is not imposing himself on the landscape, but allowing the landscape to imprint itself upon him. And then we have that magnificent final stanza. A blackbird sings, a single blackbird close by, but this song is not isolated. Thomas writes that around him, mistier, farther and farther, all the birds of Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire. This is where the poem transcends the local and touches the universal. The song of one bird links to the song of another and another, rippling out across the county lines, dissolving the artificial boundaries of maps. The birdsong unites the landscape into one breathing, singing entity. The use of mistier suggests distance, both in space and perhaps in time. It creates a sense of infinite recession, as if the English countryside goes on forever, unchanged and unchangeable. There is a poignancy here too, knowing that this was written in 1914. This piece, this timeless moment, was teetering on the edge of a violent abyss. Yet within the poem, the war does not exist. Only Adlestrop exists. Only the blackbird exists. This is the power of poetry to capture the timelessness of place. It takes a fleeting minute, a train stopping, a bird singing, and it encases it in amber. We can return to Adlestrop again and again, deeper than memory, untouched by the rust of years. It reminds us that if we stop, if we hush our own engines and clear our throats, the land is always there, waiting to speak to us in the language of grass and the bird and the sky. It is a lesson in presence. We are often so consumed by our own destination that we fail to honour the stops along the way. But as Thomas shows us, it is often in the unexpected halts, the unwanted pauses, that we truly find where we are. Moving on from the quiet grassy heat of the inland shires, we turn our compass towards the edge of the land. My own work is deeply rooted in the soil and stone of the north, but for this episode I wanted to share a piece that travels south to the rugged, granite-bound peninsula of Cornwall. Like Adlestrop, Cornwall is a place that feels ancient, a place where the past is not a layer buried beneath the earth, but a presence that walks alongside you. The poem I've chosen is titled Cornwall Awaits and features in my book Cornwall In Verse, To Tor In Poetry. I wrote this after spending time walking the coastal paths, feeling the immense weight of the cliffs and the relentless rhythm of the Atlantic. While Edward Thomas found timelessness in a moment of silence, I often find it in the roar of the ocean and the enduring strength of stone. Cornwall Awaits is an attempt to capture the dual nature of Cornwall, its harsh, unforgiving granite skeleton and the soft, nostalgic embrace of its valleys and harbours. When you stand on a Cornish cliff, you are standing on geology that has weathered millions of years of storms. You feel very small, but also strangely connected to everything that has come before. The poem moves from the exposed edge where the gulls cry free into the intimate, twisting lanes of the interior, and finally to the twilight harbours where the human history of fishing and seafaring resides. It is about the sensory experience of returning to a place that feels like it has been waiting for you, a place that holds its own memories regardless of whether we are there to witness them. I wanted to personify the land, to give it granite shoulders and an ageless face, because that's how it feels when you are there, like meeting an old wise ancestor who has seen it all. So let us leave the train station of Adlestrop and step out onto the windy cliffs of the southwest. By the cliff's edge where gulls cry free, granite shoulders lean on the sea. Tides beat time on a weathered shore, whispering tales of those before. Through lanes that twist like an old man's hand, past hedgerows stitched to a patchwork land, the scent of gorse in the summer rain, hums of a home you'll find again. Harbour lights in the harbour's keep, net menders singing the day to sleep. Boats rock slowly in the fading glow, dreaming of seas they used to know. Moorland skies in a purple sweep, cairns that guard what the hills still keep. Cornwall calls in the dust's embrace, with wind-blown hair and an ageless face. In Cornwall Awaits, I start with the image of granite shoulders lean on the sea. I wanted to convey the physicality of the landscape. Cornwall isn't just a land meeting water, it's a muscular, resistant force leaning into the ocean, bearing the weight of the tides. The granite is the bone of the county, unyielding and permanent. This contrasts with the tides beat time, which introduces the element of rhythm. The ocean is the clock of the coast, marking the passage of time not in seconds or minutes, but in the rise and fall of water, a cycle that has continued for eons. It whispers tales of those before, acknowledging the layers of history, smugglers, miners, fishermen and ancient Celts who have stood on those same cliffs. The poem then moves inland, through lanes that twist like an old man's hand. This simile is very dear to me. If you have ever driven or walked in Cornwall, you know the roads are narrow, winding and lined with high hedges. They feel organic, like the veins on an elderly hand, mapping out a life lived long and full. The hedgerows stitched through a patchwork land speaks the human mark on the timeless earth, the way we have sewn ourselves into the topography over centuries. I mentioned the scent of gorse in the summer rain. Scent is perhaps the most powerful trigger for memory. Gorse has a distinct coconut-like smell that when mixed with rain creates an aroma that is uniquely of the moorland. It hums of a home you'd find again, suggesting that this place offers a sense of belonging, a spiritual homecoming, even if you are just a visitor. The third stanza shifts to the human element at rest. Net menders singing the day to sleep. This is a nod to the traditional livelihoods that define these coastal communities. Even though the industry has changed, the spirit of the harbour remains. The boats, dreaming of seas they used to know, personifies the vessels, giving them memory, tying into the theme that the objects and places around us absorb the past. Finally, we end with the moorland skies in a purple sweep and the cairns, which are the rock piles atop the hills. The poem concludes with the personification of Cornwall, calling in the dust's embrace with wind-blown hair and an ageless face. This brings us back to the idea of the timelessness of place. Cornwall is depicted not as a static map, but as a living entity, wild and beautiful, that calls to something deep within us. It is a reminder that while our lives are fleeting, the land endures, holding our stories in its granite grasp, waiting for us to return and listen. Now we must bridge the gap between the artistic creation of these timeless worlds and the very modern, very digital reality of sharing them with an audience. As independent poets and authors, we are not just creators, we are also publishers and promoters. Today I want to talk about the practicalities of Amazon KDP, that's Kindle Direct Publishing, and the promotion options available for your paperback and ebook formats. It can feel like a labyrinth, confusing and costly, but if we approach it calmly, it becomes just another tool in our kit. First, let's talk about the KDP Select program. This is an option you can enroll your ebook into. It gives Amazon exclusive rights to sell your ebook for 90 days. In exchange, your book is included in Kindle Unlimited. When a reader on Kindle Unlimited reads your poetry, you are paid per page read. For poetry where page counts are lower, this might seem disadvantageous compared to a 500-page novel, but poetry readers often binge entire collections. The per-page payout fluctuates, usually around a fraction of a penny, but it does add up. More importantly, KDP Select unlocks 2 promotional tools, free days and Kindle countdown deals. You get 5 free days every 90-day period. Why give your work away? It's about visibility. If you have a new collection, a free run can push your book up the charts, gathering reviews and getting it into the also bought algorithms. It's a loss leader strategy. The countdown deal allows you to discount the book, say to 99p, while still earning a 70% royalty rate, which is usually only for books priced above $2.99. Badge appears on the sales page showing the price ticking up, and that creates urgency. Now, let's discuss paid advertising, Amazon ads. This is where many authors feel overwhelmed. You have sponsored products, where your book appears in search results or on the product pages of other books. You pay per click. In the US market, clicks can be expensive, sometimes 30 cents to $1 or more. For a poetry book priced at $9.99 or an ebook at $3.99, margins are tight. The key here is specific targeting. Don't just target the word poetry, that's too broad. You will blow your budget in an hour. Target specific similar authors. If you write nature poetry like me, target Mary Oliver, Edward Thomas, Wendell Berry or nature poetry collections. The intent of the searcher matters. You can also use lock screen ads, which appear on the Kindle device itself. These are often cheaper per impression, may have lower conversion rates. The costs are entirely up to you. You can set a daily budget of $5 or £5. Amazon will rarely spend it all unless your targeting is very wide. The fear is runaway costs, but the dashboard allows you to cap everything. Personally, I recommend starting with auto-targeting with a very low bid, say 15 cents or 15 pence, to see what Amazon thinks your book is relevant to. Then moving to manual targeting once you have data. Another often overlooked promotion that is free is your author central page. First, you claim your profile, add your biography, photos, and editorial reviews. This professionalizes your presence. When someone clicks your name, they should see a cohesive brand, not a blank page. And finally, regarding paperbacks specifically, the printing costs themselves have risen. Standard 100-page poetry book might cost $2.50 to $3.50 to print. If you price it at $6.99, your royalty is tiny. You must find the balance between accessibility for the reader and sustainability for you. Don't underprice your art. People expect to pay for quality. A price of $9.99 to $12.99 for a paperback is standard and allows you a buffer to run ads. Navigating Kindle Direct Publishing is a practice of patience, much like writing. It requires testing, adjusting, and accepting that every seed you plant will bloom instantly. But understanding these mechanisms gives you poetry the best chance to find the hands that need to hold it. Let me know your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Now you've listened to one of my poems and my tips on Amazon KDP, I'd love to hear from you. If there's a poem you'd like me to feature as a guest poem in a future episode, please email me at aldencarrow78@gmail.com. That's aldencarrow78@gmail.com. It could be a classic, something modern, or even a personal favourite that means a lot to you. This way, the podcast becomes a shared journey. So thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, may you find the poetry in the everyday, and I'll see you next Wednesday.